Citroen are trying to prove that affordable cars don't have to be boring. The new Citroen C3 at the point of filming starts from £17,337 from our Vertu dealers. But at that low price tag, you still get loads of equipment. There's little quirky details that are actually customisable, and it has the iconic, comfortable Citroen interior and a rather clever suspension setup. Hi guys, I'm Tish, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the new Citroen C3. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. The model that I'm going to be driving is actually the petrol hybrid, but we do have all three versions of the C3 available to test drive at Vertu. That includes the petrol hybrid, and also the fully electric car. Firstly, however, why don't we take a look at the new exterior? Now, hatchback purists might be slightly disappointed to find out that the new Citroen C3 is only available in this crossover trim, but that does have benefits which we'll talk about later on. But it has a very upright stance, and the whole idea with this car is not to overcomplicate it, so you have a simple front end but still with quirky elements, including the new Citroen logo, which whilst is new, is trying to look a little bit like the older logos. You also have tons of chevron details, including in this gloss black bar across the front. You also now get LED lighting signatures in this new quirky design, and all of those are standard even from the entry-level trim, which is great. There's also some quirky customizable elements, including these little bars around the front of the car, which can actually be switched out to whatever colour you like. You're going to notice throughout this review there's a consistent theme of comfort, because that's something that Citroen really focuses on, especially with this car, and that's woven into the alloy wheels. So you get 17 inches on both versions of this car, but you get a real nice chunky bit of tyre wall, and that's going to give you a lot of ride comfort. We'll talk about that a bit more later on. The overall design, once again, is more upright, and you have that chunky SUV styling, but I like the contrasting elements. You have the contrasting roof, the contrasting door mirrors, and also a set of roof rails, which give it that go anywhere feel. And yet again, you have the customizable bar around the rear quarter, and I really like the Citroen, which is embossed into those roof rails. That tall stance actually has loads of benefits when it comes to rear interior space, so we'll talk about that a bit later on. But the rear of this car is very good to look at. You've got a simple rear gloss black spoiler, which carries across from that gloss black roof, and I love these lights. They're almost this like crystal element, and it looks like the lighting signature is suspended in them. That's really special. Again, you have those chevron details, which are so iconic to Citroen. Now, you can't be expecting any fancy electric boots here. It's all manual in the C3, but inside there are more positives. It gets 310 litres, which is pretty good for this class of car. That's more than the Toyota Yaris, although it's slightly less than something like a Renault Clio. But you do have a nice wide opening, a relatively low load lip, but what I do like is the benefit of these plastic bumpers. So if you're loading items in, you haven't got to worry about scratching the paintwork, as you'll just be touching this bumper instead. But that's a positive. A slight negative is the fact that there's not an adjustable boot floor, so there's quite a high load lip. So if you're lifting in heavy suitcases, you will need to thump them down there and then pull them back out. And it's quite simplistic in its design inside. You're not going to find any fancy features like you will do in Skodas. There's no kind of 12-volt charging points, but there are a couple of tether down points, and you do have a nice parcel shelf. Overall, however, I think it's perfectly acceptable and should be more than enough for most people. There's plenty enough storage for a weekend away or even a shopping trip. Sitting inside the Citroen C3, and this doesn't feel like a budget car. In fact, it's a little bit of a trip to the spa. These seats are so comfortable. These are actually Citroen's advanced comfort seats, so they have loads of squishy padding, super comfortable, and you get these as standard. This is the upgraded interior, however. This is the max specification. It's going to cost you just a little bit more over the entry-level car, but you get this nice light interior, which I think makes it worth it. You also get a bit more equipment as well. So this particular car is fitted with a rear view camera. You get heated seats, a heated steering wheel and a heated windscreen, which is fantastic, and that definitely helps in the UK where it gets really cold. Even in May, I feel like I want my heated steering wheel on. There's also plenty of usability. So we have a couple of cup holders. There's also some wireless charging on this top spec model. I've got a little bit of storage inside this armrest here, a bit of storage inside the doors, and there is, weirdly, a little bit of storage all the way on top of the dashboard, although I wouldn't want to put anything up there because it would kind of just be rolling around. But I do appreciate that they've used a mix of materials. So you have the nice fabric on the seats with those contrasting elements, but you also have this kind of fabric across the dashboard. And then in the plastic here, despite being plastic, it's actually textured, very similar to the front and rear of the car, using those chevron details, which I really like. It just lifts it. And then you have the quirky elements. So on each of the doors, you have these little tabs which have little words of encouragement. This one says, "Have fun." That's cute. And there's also extra Easter eggs to be found around the cabin. So open up the glove box and you'll find another one which features all of the iconic Citroen cars from history. How cute is that? I love the fact that despite this being an affordable car, they've also just injected personality into it. And I think that really matters in the small SUV class. The infotainment system is very good. What I like about the Citroen is it's not dominated by screens. You have an easy to use touchscreen which features Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on all models, but step up to this Max and you also get a built-in satellite navigation as well. And everyone will be very pleased to hear that you also get physical climate control dials. You get automatic climate control in this top spec and just standard climate in the entry-level car, although neither are dual zone. This steering wheel is rather interesting as well. Citroen has actually decreased the size of this wheel for this generation of car, and that means you get really easy visibility over to this little almost head-up display style screen that you have in front of you, which features all of the important information you need to know when driving. Now, rear seat space actually varies depending on what specification of the car that you're driving, because the electric car actually has the batteries built into the floor, so it means that your feet sit up a little bit higher. But in this petrol hybrid model, there is tons of legroom and also a load of headroom as well. As I mentioned, you have that really upright stance of the car, gives you loads of space even in the back. And what I do like is that it doesn't taper off too much to the sides. So even if I move right over, I still have lots of headroom, which can't be said for many of this car's rivals. It's also pretty comfortable as well. Once again, you've got those squidgy Citroen comfort seats. There's also a little bit of storage inside of the doors, and you also have some charging, which is built into this centre armrest. But this centre armrest does come quite far back. So if you're sitting into the middle, then you're going to have slightly less legroom. But for poor passengers, it's very good. There's also ISOFIX fitments on each of the outer edges, and they're behind these little zips. So instead of the plastic bits that you can lose, they're tucked nicely behind zips. There isn't a rear armrest, and these seats split 60-40. The seats are actually cleverly designed, so they're kind of carved out where your legs would be. There's also pockets in the backs of the seats, not only in the classic map style, but also up here for your mobile phone. As I mentioned, the model that I'm driving today is the petrol hybrid, and personally I think this is the one to have because it sits nicely between the fully electric and also the standard petrol, giving you the best of both worlds. This engine is called the Hybrid 110 and it combines a turbocharged 1.2 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine with a small electric motor and a 48-volt hybrid system. Power is sent through a 6-speed dual-clutch automatic gearbox, and unlike many mild hybrids that only really assist the engine occasionally, this system can actually drive on electric power alone at lower speeds. Citroen actually says that this can complete 50% of urban journeys using electric driving only, and around town you can really feel the car consistently switching between petrol and electric power quite smoothly. Pulling away from junctions, crawling in traffic and also manoeuvring through town often happens silently under electric power before the petrol engine gently blends back in. It makes the whole car feel much more refined than you may expect from this price point. The hybrid system also helps disguise some of the weaknesses that you often get with smaller turbocharged engines, because the electric motor fills in the gaps at low speed acceleration. So instead of waiting for the turbo to wake up, the car feels smooth and more immediate when you're pulling away. Performance figures themselves are not especially exciting, but honestly, that's not really the point of this car. It feels responsive and relaxed more than the numbers actually suggest, and the automatic gearbox actually suits the comfort-focused character a little bit more than I suspect the manual does. Fuel economy should also be noticeably better than the standard petrol, especially around town where the hybrid system spends more of its time using electric power. Citroen also says that CO2 emissions have been reduced by more than 10% compared to the normal turbo petrol. Now obviously, I am going to address the elephant in the room, because this hybrid still uses a version of the PureTech 1.2 litre engine architecture, and older PureTech engines developed a bit of a bad reputation online for issues involving the wet timing belts and oil consumption. However, Citroen says that this new generation has actually been heavily redesigned and now uses a timing chain instead. And that's hugely important, because the old engine's reputation is probably still the single biggest concern that buyers have when buying a C3. Below this hybrid sits the standard petrol. It's the PureTech 100, which uses the same 1.2 litre turbocharged engine, but it doesn't have a hybrid system, and it's paired with a 6-speed manual gearbox. It's cheaper and simpler, but I suspect most buyers would probably prefer the smoother nature of this hybrid if the budget allows, although the petrol can be had with that manual gearbox, which I think will please quite a few people. Then of course there is the fully electric C3. This gets a 44 kilowatt-hour battery with up to 199 miles of WLTP range, and also 100 kilowatts of rapid charging capability. This is not the most affordable version, but if you're doing shorter journeys, I think this could be a great option. Hitting the road in the C3 is where the hybrid really starts to make sense, because the smoother hybrid powertrain actually works really well with the comfort-focused suspension setup. Citroen has very deliberately prioritised comfort over outright handling precision, and that feels quite refreshing in today's market, because many modern small cars nowadays ride far too firmly on our UK roads. And every version of this new C3 comes fitted with Citroen's advanced comfort suspension system, featuring progressive hydraulic cushions. Look, it's not air suspension or anything overly complicated, but the clever part is how Citroen has engineered the dampeners. In a normal suspension setup, you essentially have springs, dampeners, and then you have mechanical bump stops, where the suspension reaches the end of its travel after hitting a pothole or a speed bump, and those mechanical stops can create quite harsh impact through the cabin. Citroen replaces those traditional bump stops with hydraulic cushions at both ends for dampener movement, and that means that instead of the suspension suddenly hitting a hard stop, the energy is absorbed progressively through the hydraulic pressure. Nice one, Citroen! At lower speeds, particularly around town, the Citroen C3 has a slightly floaty, almost old-school French car character to it. It softens potholes, broken tarmac and sharp edge bumps far better than most of the cars in this segment. Now, the downside to that is the softer setup has increased body roll and less precision through the corners. You can absolutely feel the car leaning more than something like perhaps a Peugeot 208 or even a Renault Clio would. But if you enjoy driving quickly around country roads, there's definitely sharper cars in this class. But personally, I think Citroen has made the right compromise with this car. At the start of this video, I said that Citroen were aiming to create a car which is affordable, but is still fun and it's also super comfortable. And they have definitely achieved that with the new C3. But don't take my word for it. Make sure you get yourself down to your local Vertu dealer and test drive the C3 in any of those flavours, petrol, hybrid or electric, whatever takes your fancy. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know all your thoughts and feelings down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys, see you later.